Make sure this is on. Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth in sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in four corners of the earth who claim this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Brakata. So, again, the ceasefire been extended till Sunday, supposedly, right? But, 660,000 troops are incoming, so they know that this ceasefire is fake as this video goes into. So without further ado.
Oh boy, things are sure a little bit messy, to say the least, specifically with a ceasefire that the Iranians are not abiding by. What in the world is really going on right now, as there still is a massive amount of military hardware being sent down to the Middle East. As a lot of people are saying, with the straits still closed, the economy worldwide cannot survive here, as the cost for food definitely is expected to go up, as well as what a lot of people are describing as a global reset that's being manufactured through this conflict, an attack on major oil refineries as well. What's really going on here? Professor Zhang has some very interesting theories about the U.S. empire and how a lot of this ceasefire is just really a ruse for a larger ground operation. Is he right? I hope he's not. We're going to get into all of it, as well as the latest developments and details surrounding the latest geopolitical situation in the world right now. And if you appreciate that, subscribe, click the notification button. We greatly appreciate all the time that you spend with us. As within the last few hours, Donald Trump announced that he is extending the Iranian ceasefire. He says, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured. I wonder why. Bombing them does that. Not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal Azman Mar and the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. There's been a lot of miscommunication, there's been a lot of hackers also taking advantage of the situation, people paying the ransom, and then those people not actually being the actual people, and lots of very wild, crazy, tumultuous type of situations unfolding in the Strait of Hormuz around this major trade route, as Donald Trump previously announced that there would be lots of bombs if there's no ceasefire, and it looks like he was bluffing. It was good that he was bluffing. There hasn't been a war. He's extending the ceasefire, as the Iranian leadership, or one sect of the kind of fractured leadership in Iran, says that they don't recognize this ceasefire, and that they may or may not abide by it based on national interest. As of course now we are getting reports of massive U.S. Air Force activity headed down to the Middle East here. Oil prices went up, they went down temporarily, as right now we're getting reports that President Trump reportedly believes that he has done all he can with the military and wants to, quote, exit this war, which I think is the smarter type of strategy here, as today 3 ships were attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, which complicates these kind of larger efforts of U.S. talks here, as the Iranians are coming down and saying, you stop your blockade, then we'll come negotiate with you, as the United States goes after Chinese, Russian, Iranian, other ships in the region, as well, as Donald Trump talked about how he found surprising things that were headed to Iran from China, and then this latest attack this morning absolutely complicates the situation very tremendously.
3 cargo ships have been reported been hit by Iranian gunfires and fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz, and it happened this morning.
Meanwhile, President Trump has extended his ceasefire deadline, citing a fractured regime. And Matt Finn is live in Islamabad, Pakistan, with the latest news.
Hi, Ainsley. There was supposed to be a ceasefire, but we are getting these reports of 3 separate ships attacked in the Strait of Hormuz this morning. The 3rd cargo ship.
Now, we were told that the Iranian Navy was wiped out, but it looks like they had tunnel systems with smaller boats that they're utilizing to attack and fire on some of these cargo ships. It looks like there's also satellite imagery highlighting how they're mining more of the Strait of Hormuz, a situation that the United States says will take at least 6 months to demine, and now they're mining more, which of course complicates it that much more.
Ship, the most recent, reportedly has been attacked while attempting to transit the strait. It may have a Panama flag on it, and earlier the British military reported one of its ships was attacked as well. We don't have a confirmed attacker, but Iran is suspected here.
3 cargo.
Yeah, especially with their small boats here, as we're seeing reports of allegedly Indonesia planning to impose their fees with people transiting the Strait of Malacca. Is that true? Again, everything just seems to be getting more complicated. Who knows what to really believe here, is now the kind of larger question that I think is on everyone's mind is, what is China's involved here? As Fox News is reporting, China-linked route exposed after U.S. seizes Iran-bound ship with suspected dual-use cargo, allegedly from the Chinese, that was there to help aid and abet them when it comes to some of their potential military operations. As we're hearing a lot of very conflicting news about the Strait of Hormuz, that it was open, that it was closed, that it will be closed, that we don't need the help, that we do need the help. Another key factor in all of this.
You mentioned jet fuel, right?
There's tens of thousands of flights in Europe being canceled. Reports of up to 20,000 flights. Why? Because of the rising fuel costs that are making it that much more expensive. As a UK minister just came out and says we cannot escape the consequences of the UK government is talking about the potential food shortages also hitting here. But this is what you have to say about the jet fuel prices that are going up.
Can you just, you're talking about the honest people, but what are our supplies of jet fuel? How worried should we be?
Well, historically, we've had a lot of jet fuel from the Middle East, so we have to source that from elsewhere, whether that's the United States or other countries.
Yeah,
airlines.
you make me stuck there.
To do that, but these are the ripple effects, if you like, of something that we were not part of. We didn't choose to be part of. But again, to come back to my point about levelling with the viewers, we can't escape the consequences.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of people's travel trips are up in the air. That's why I'm like, hey, it would be nice if we have some peace here. We've been calling for peace. Before playing the rest of this clip and talking about the larger consequences here, especially with 10 oil refineries blowing up in 21 days. Just really quickly, when it comes to level uncertainty, don't forget to check out LukeUnfiltered.com. If we get deleted or censored, you also get access to our full t-shirt store. Shirt available now for the next. If you support our Twitter, really grateful that you guys do that here. Now let's continue on with this type of sobering assessment.
The point is, the government will do everything we can to help the country through these consequences.
We could see more flights being cut and cancelled.
I don't want to predict. I think airlines know there's a problem. These are experienced businesses. They source from wherever they can, and they will try to find alternative supplies if supplies are not available from the usual Middle East sources.
Yeah, as of course global energy supply is down. Some people assess major percentages. Some people assess 60%. I don't want to believe that. I don't think that's true. That sounds pretty crazy. There's also a situation with fertilizer during farming season, right? That isn't only going to affect our grocery prices. There's a lot of places that are dealing with a lot of food scarcity and insecurity when it comes to their kind of ability. Also, with Ukraine being the breadbasket of Europe, there's also larger questions about that potential conflict, as a lot of people are talking about how the economy cannot survive a straight-off Hormuz closing, which to me defeats a lot of the people making the 4D chess argument, saying that this is somehow good. I don't think it is.
The world economy cannot survive a 7 to 11% loss of oil supply. It will not survive. We can debate, is Europe going to go first and collapse? Is Southeast Asia going to go first and collapse? Will America collapse first? But the global economy is a certainty. It will collapse if we keep oil supplies down.
What's the likelihood we go there and we stay there? What's the timeline? Like if we go to 7-11%, for how long?
Well, we've been there for 6 weeks. And I think if we get to mid-April, like you're already seeing flights. I just woke up this morning, a discount airline out of London Gatwick canceled all flights, can't get fuel. So now you're going to start having tourism fall.
You agree with
supply chains?
That's very true. It was announced in the UK that the last shipment of kerosene was just made this week, and there's no further known shipment arriving in the UK, which is pretty crazy. But it also tells you that this is a policy outcome, because nobody seems to care. There's no countermeasures. There's alternative ways. There's things you could do if you wanted to. They don't. Why? Because this feeds into this other agenda that's ongoing, and that we mustn't forget. We mustn't take our eyes off that. And that is, I've just explained sort of the background with the European Union. It's actually central planners wanting to centrally plan more and more. And it looks like they're going to use this opportunity to impose digital controls and the 15-minute cities. You won't be able to fly. Of course, a lot of people are thinking that this is really what this is all about. A lot of people are also talking about how this is going to limit the energy. You limit energy, you limit humanity, right? And this is why I just don't think it's like 4D chess, right? It just the argument doesn't make sense to me, especially with the large cost up front. That specifically a lot of the poorer middle-class people that are going to be suffering because of this, right? The elites won't suffer through this. As Tracy Alloway says, here comes the food inflation. Costs for food companies jumped 7.9% in March versus 4.2% in February. This is basically just from higher fuel costs. We're waiting for the impact of higher fertilizer, plastics, etc. from the old Lot News letter. Yeah, grocery prices are already pretty crazy here. And of course, 10 oil refineries blew up in the last 21 days. I don't think it's a coincidence, right? That power plants, oil refineries, energy facilities all across the world have been destroyed. Some by fire, some by explosion, some by accident, some by war. In Russia, 3 facilities destroyed in 21 days. India, 3 facilities in 21 days. Australia, 10% of national fuel percentage gone in one night. There's other things also happening in Mexico, as a lot of people are talking about how some of this could be just absolutely deliberate here. We have Russian political leadership coming out and saying we're facing one of the most severe energy crises in human history, as the Russians are signaling that they won't be giving any energy to Europe as well. Europe's like, we don't want it, and then they were secretly buying it through India and China. But now more questions kind of remain here about what in the hell is going to be happening here.
Мы видим, что наступает самый мощный энергетический кризис.
We're an energy crisis of mankind is approaching. Neither Europe nor Britain is at all prepared for it. Moreover, they shot themselves in the foot by refusing Russian energy supplies. And therefore, our forecast is very simple, that in fact, a powerful deindustrialization will now occur in Europe. Britain has some of the most serious problems, and it's all simply due to wrong decisions being made by British and European politicians on energy. And it's very important that we raise this issue, because when there's no gas, when there's at the gas stations, when there are no jobs, people in Europe and Britain must understand that this is the result of the enormous decision, absolutely clear, made by Ursula von der Leyen, Bilderberg member, and other Russia-phobic European and British politicians. And again, I think Germany is the one that's in most trouble. I mean, they got rid of a lot of their energy production, especially nuclear energy production. France, I think, is going to be the best off. They built a lot of nuclear. I don't understand why we're not building nuclear here. China's building a lot of nuclear here. As I think the opening of the Strait of Hormuz here is not something that's a 40 chess plan that Trump wants closed, right? I think Trump is making efforts not to close it, to keep it open. A lot of people are looking at him for it being closed. A lot of people are looking at him because of the trade disruptions, energy prices, fertilizers, everything that's going up here. As Professor Zhang came out and believes that this current ceasefire that has been extended is going to lead the way for an total ground invasion. This is what he had to say on the Jimmy Dore show recently.
A massive military buildup in the Middle East. When the George H.W. Bush arrives in theater, possibly by Friday, the Americans will have about 60,000 troops ready to go for a massive invasion of Iran, which is what a lot of people expect to happen. So this ceasefire is pure theater. It's just a pretext to build up forces in the Middle East.
And so Trump announced today that on Wednesday the ceasefire will end. So that means he's going to start bombing again. They're going to start. What do you see happening on Wednesday?
So the ceasefire does expire on Wednesday, but that doesn't necessarily mean that
this was released a day ago, but Donald Trump just a couple months ago extended the ceasefire.
Bombing will start right away, because remember, the Americans need to get forces in position. They need to stage the forces, and so it's possible that on Wednesday Trump announces another 2-week ceasefire, and he doesn't really care.
And that's what happened. This is the guy that predicted that Trump would win his presidency, and that he would go into war with Iran, and that he would lose the war with Iran.
What the Iranians say, because
Just
they need
for the
time to
record.
prepare for the strike. So the Americans used to do something called shock and awe. So they want to go in, destroy as much as they can, and then leave with minimal civilian casualties. So they are looking to strike as hard as possible when the time is appropriate.
Now, will that be happening here? As, of course, the conversation got a little bit deeper about the American empire, how all this is kind of playing out, how all of this is kind of working out here. Listen, I think it's pretty clear that the whole world is getting more and more closer towards a full-on war posture, and I don't like that. I think we need to de-escalate that. I think.
So, like everything else, the third woe cometh quickly. So here we are, you know. Senate to vote on war powers resolution to block U.S. attack against Cuba, because Trump is ready to go all in against Cuba as well. Next week, the Senate is expected to vote on war powers resolution aimed at preventing U.S. attack against Cuba, amid reports that the Pentagon is wrapping up preparations for impending war against the island nation. The bill SJ Resolution 124 was introduced last month by senators and would block hostilities against Cuba that haven't been authorized by Congress. When will President Trump understand that Americans want lower prices, not more unnecessary wars? Kane said in a statement when the bill was introduced last month. Well, like everything else, though, it's a forever war. It's a third woe coming quickly. Ninth Circuit kills California ISIS unmasking law. So in other words, these masked terrorists are going to still be wearing their masks. The Ninth Circuit Court Appeals handed the Trump administration a significant legal victory Wednesday, issuing a formal injunction blocking California's No Vigilantes Act from being enforced. So, like everything else, though, you know, they could be the iced motherfucking terrorists they always were before. It's Esau. He's the one that hides behind the mask, you know, because they don't want you to see his true identity, because he's a coward piece of shit, you know. And like everything else, though, without his guns, what is he? He's a sucker waiting to fucking get his ass fucking kicked. You know, if he didn't have his fucking guns and his gear. The sword is his only weapon. Otherwise, he'd get his fucking ass kicked. You know, that's why, you know, whenever there's a fight and all that, you know, he'll try to put a thumb in the eye and do all kinds of other shit because he doesn't like to lose fights. Trump administration filed suit in November contending the law created real and immediate dangers of ISIS, already facing what it described as harassment, doxing, and threats of physical violence. Oh yeah, Oh, okay, you can be a piece of shit, goddamn motherfucker. But heaven forbid, people say, you know what, fuck you, man. You have no fucking authority here. Well, they got ways around it. Denying federal agency officers. You're not a federal agency. You're a fucking renegade fucking cop that just is hired by a piece of shit, you know, that pretty much is not even, you know, what you would call American to begin with. He's an Israeli. He's an Israeli foreigner. You know, and I mean as in Amalek. Donald Trump is Amalek and is totally on the dick of King Bibi. The No Vigilante Act responds to troubling ISIS activities in which masked motherfuckers have seized people off the street without showing any agency name, personal identification, or badge number. You know, just being the coward piece of shit. Because they're afraid of fucking retaliation. You know, so like everything else though, you know, still, you got the Hormuz situation heating up, right? As there's been tit for tat going on, as this video goes into. See how, you know, he's a fierce king and cruel lord, you know, sending ISIS after everybody. So this is a snippet of, you know, videos showing you what's going on in the Strait within the last week, you know, during this fake ceasefire. Also, keep in mind, though, that you do have fake people demanding tolls and all that are not Iranian.
Incident 8 nautical miles west of Iran, where the master of an outbound cargo ship said the vessel came under fire and has now stopped in the water. All crew members are safe and accounted for, with no reported damage to the ship. UKMTO says it is aware of high levels of activity in the Strait of Hormuz area and is urging all vessels to report any suspicious maritime movements. UKMTO says it received a report of an incident 15 nautical miles northeast of Oman, where a container ship was reportedly approached by an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, gunboat before coming under fire.
The master of a container ship reported that the vessel was approached by one IRGC gunboat that then fired upon the vessel, which has caused heavy damage to the bridge. No fires or environmental impact reported.
The master of the vessel reported heavy damage to the ship's bridge following the attack, though no fires or environmental impact were recorded and all crew members are safe, according to UKMTO. Iran has sharply escalated tensions, with Foreign Minister Sayed Abbas Araghchi declaring the blockade of its ports an act of war, warning that the ceasefire is already being violated.
Blockading Iranian ports is an act of war and thus a violation of the ceasefire. Striking a commercial vessel and taking its crew hostage is an even greater violation. Iran knows how to neutralize restrictions, how to defend its interests, and how to resist bullying.
Araghchi went further, accusing the opposing side of striking a commercial vessel and taking its crew hostage, calling it a grave breach. Inside Tehran, the message is just as hardline. An advisor to Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf stressed a power triangle of street, square, and diplomacy, signaling talks will not happen without pressure and control. The advisor also warned against secret deals, insisting negotiations must serve national interests. The line is clear: Iran may talk, but it will not bend. Meanwhile, the military warning is blunt. A spokesperson for Khatam al-Anbiya said forces are at 100% readiness, fingers on the trigger, ready to strike immediately, threatening a harsher response to the United States and Israel.
Our capable and powerful forces have been at 100% readiness and with their fingers on the trigger for a long time, so that in case of any aggression or action against Islamic Iran, they immediately strike the predetermined targets powerfully and teach the aggressive America and the child-killing Zionist regime a harsher lesson than before.
Together, the message from Tehran is unmistakable. Diplomacy remains on the table, but with the threat of escalation looming, any further pressure could push the conflict beyond talks and into open confrontation.
So there it is right there, you know, that pretty much so it's going to go a lot further. U.S. official says Trump's Iran ceasefire extension is not open-ended. U.S. officials told Axios that President Trump's extension of the ceasefire with Iran will not be open-ended and suggested it could last just 3 to 5 days, though the exact timetable was later denied. The Trump administration has attempted to frame the lack of talks in Pakistan as related to divisions between the Iranian leadership. No, they've just been very firm about where they stand. Iran's Supreme National Security Council released a statement making it clear that the strait was closed due to the U.S. maintaining the blockade against Iran, which is considered to be ceasefire violation, and view that's been affirmed by Odysee. Blockading Iranian ports is an act of war and thus a violation of the ceasefire, as you saw in the video. But nonetheless, though, pretty much, though, same guy that was on Jimmy Dore, yesterday, it was just on Redacted as well. And he said that this Iran war is turning into a forever war. Yeah, it's a third world war. It's a war that will not be exited, but rather it's going to continue. It's going to continue to escalate to a full-blown third world war. And we already know that. It's in Ezekiel chapter 38. Revelation chapter 17 and 18 goes into the destruction of Babylon, as well as many other countries that get caught in the crossfire, better known as that Valley of Jehoshaphat. So this is not just a simple few weeks war, but it's a forever war. It's a third world war that cometh quickly. And as he gets into this here.
All right, we're lucky enough to be joined by Professor Jiang. He's the author of Predictive History on Substack. Of course, he went viral for accurately predicting that President Trump would take us to this war in Iran, and he's been right all along. So we want to invite the professor on now, given the president's most recent remarks about an open-ended ceasefire and that Iran is basically on the ropes, and he is actively trying to find an off-ramp to end this war, but of course he's being pressured significantly by the Israelis and Mossad to continue this war. So we wanted to invite the professor on to talk about the war, economic depression, and everything else. Professor, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, David.
Pleasure to have you here. So you heard the president yesterday release this statement about really like an open-ended ceasefire with Iran. And it seems like the president, among reports from Washington, is actively trying to end this war, trying to find an off-ramp to get out of this. You predicted him getting into it. How do you predict he will try to get out of this?
Right, so I think Trump is very frustrated with this war. He was expecting a quick strike, like what happened in Venezuela, where the force went in and kidnapped Maduro. It was a tremendous victory for America. So on the first day, the Israelis and Americans attacked Tehran and killed the Ayatollah. And he expected that the Iranians would capitulate right after that. But the ferocity and resolve of the Iranians have taken Trump aback. They didn't expect that the Iranians would close off the Strait of Hormuz, thus threatening the global economy. They didn't expect the Iranians would attack the GCC energy infrastructure. And so this has been very humiliating for Trump. And from his perspective, he doesn't like to fight long wars of attrition. It's very unpopular back at home, and he doesn't really know how to spin this. So as you say, he would like very much an off-ramp. He really believed that these negotiations in Islamabad would be his off-ramp. Unfortunately, the Iranians see through Trump's antics. They refuse to send a delegation to meet with Trump's team in Islamabad. So we are stuck in a situation where Trump wants an off-ramp, the Iranians refuse to negotiate. And quite honestly, I do not know how Trump developed this off-ramp. Because right now, the Iranians are holding the global economy under siege. The Iranians still control the Strait of Hormuz, even though Trump has imposed a naval blockade. That naval blockade is very porous, it's very leaky. There's reporting today that over 30 Iranian tankers have been able to break the blockade and sell their oil overseas. The Iranians now are threatening to cut overseas cables, which would destroy the internet of Dubai, and basically destroy Dubai as an economy, because they rely so much on the internet connection with the rest of the world. They will no longer be able to do any international banking. And this is not Dubai. The Iranians are also threatening all the other GCC economies, threatening to close off the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to close off the Red Sea through their proxies, the Houthis, and threatening to destroy pipelines, and basically take 1/3 of the world's energy offline. So this is a very dire situation for the GCC, and as such, Saudi Arabia and UAE have put a lot of pressure on the Trump White House, primarily through Kushner, to seek a resolution as soon as possible. There are only two off-ramps. The first off-ramp is
he can flirt, but he's not able to bite.
Iran, maybe $1 trillion.
He has no bite left.
And then to give sovereignty to Iranians over the Strait of Hormuz and remove U.S. bases from the Middle East. The second solution is sending ground forces and escalate the situation and hope that ground forces will be able to topple the regime and install a much more friendly regime to the United States. So those are the two major solutions. Unfortunately, it seems as though there is no real off-ramp or quick exit for Trump. this war is going to drag on, possibly for months, possibly even for years. What I think Trump's going to do is that he's going to pretend this war doesn't exist anymore, because that's what Trump does. And he might switch attention to Cuba. So as you know, right now there's this massive embargo on Cuba. They have blackouts everywhere, and they have to ration both food and fuel. And the Pentagon is on plans to actually invade Cuba at some point. It's possible that Trump threatens Canada. He's been having this fight with Carney for the longest time over a new NAFTA. It's possible he sends in special forces to attack the cartels in Mexico. But what we know from Trump is that he does not like long wars, but at the same time he does not like to lose face. So it's possible that Trump being Trump, he just distracts us with a new war somewhere else.
Well, right. I want to ask about the lived experience. That's exactly what I was just thinking. You know, a lot of people, even in our audience of geopolitical enthusiasts, are starting to just get tired and bored of this back and forth. We're at war, we're going to destroy them completely. Never mind, we're on a ceasefire. Now we're going to kill them, we're going to beat the shit out, and now it's okay. And how can we possibly stay engaged with this? But this may be a tactic to keep us weary while the war drags on. And I'm wondering, because I lived through the 20 years of the war in Afghanistan, the 8 years of the Gulf War, that maybe this is how it was done. Maybe I was just too young to know, but it just keeps going. And then we're like, well, it might end at one point. Is this a part of it?
I think so. I think that we will be slowly desensitized, normalized into another further war in Iran. So what we're looking at right now is not actually a ceasefire. We're actually looking at round 2, or recalibration of American strategy. So in round 1, remember, the Americans focused on shock and awe, basically trying to decapitate the regime through strategic strikes. And they did kill a lot of leaders, but the government is still resilient, it's still standing, so that has failed. And round 2 is basically trying to impose a blockade on the Iranian economy, basically trying to strangulate the economy. So we're not actually seeing a ceasefire. If there's a ceasefire, you would not blockade the surgical moves, because that's an act of war. What we're seeing is recalibration. And basically, I think they will continue this for as long as it takes to topple the government in Tehran. But what's going to happen, as you point out, is that eventually we'll get sick of all this drama and switch our attention elsewhere.
And this is what happens, right? Because then at home, we've got jobs to take care of, we've got kids to take care of, and this is part of the strategy. If it's not on the front page every day, like in Gaza, they can continue the war in Gaza, and now the focus is on something else, so they can distract us. So what will the pieces of this forever war look like? I think the last time you were on our show, I believe you said you believe that this is becoming Trump's Vietnam. And so what are the pieces of this look like in terms of 5 years, 6 years? Are we talking about permanent naval presence in the Strait of Hormuz, a permanent blockade? Will we actually see boots on the ground? It doesn't seem Trump wants to do that. But what, bases in the region that are being built up, I guess, what is your prediction on that?
Right. So I think moving forward, the long-term American strategy is a 3-pillar strategy. The first pillar will be to use ground forces in order to economically strangle Iran. And the way you do that is by controlling Strait of Hormuz, right? So you don't control the Strait of Hormuz to allow for free maritime navigation as before. What you want to do is destroy Iran's capacity to export oil. That might mean seizing Cargo Island. But you also want to destroy Iran's capacity to exact tolls on any ships that want to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. And so you basically want to cut off all financing for Iran. And you do that by having limited ground operations near the Strait of Hormuz, primarily Cargo Island and Qasim Island, possibly even the Iranian coastline. Okay? And you do that, and basically what you're doing is you're trying to besiege Iran, and you're trying to minimize troop casualties. Okay, so that's the first pillar. Regulation. Second thing you do is that you set up forward operating bases in safe places in Iran, meaning ethnic enclaves, right? So it's possible you set up forward operating bases in the southeast of Iran by the Pakistani border, where the Balochs are. This is an ethnic group in Iran. You also can set up a forward operating base in the northwest of Iran, where the Kurds are. And what you're trying to do basically is you're trying to stir up ethnic tensions in Iran, and you're trying to create an ethnic civil war in the country. Okay, that's step 2. And step 3 is you try to suffocate Tehran. So Tehran is a city of 10 million people. It relies on railways, transportation for its food. So what you do is you attack the infrastructure of Tehran to basically starve out the population. You attack the reservoirs to deny them water. You destroy power plants to deny them electricity. Okay. What you're trying to do in this process is you're trying to work slowly so you do not create backlash back at home, because these are essentially war crimes. And what you're trying to do is slowly apply pressure on the Iranians so that the population gets restive and gets very angry, and they're forced to reach a local settlement with the Americans.
That's terrifying. It's terrifying to think that this is how this plays out, but you can see it clearly. Do you see any similarities here in the pieces that you just laid out, from the ground forces, the strangulation, the ethnic enclave piece of this, to what we did in Afghanistan or Iraq?
Yeah, I mean, this sort of solution, it's meant not to commit to regime change. It's really meant to destroy the country as a viable nation state. So I think the end goal is to break Iran into ethnic enclaves, the balkanization of Iran, essentially, and have them fight over scarce resources, especially water. And so they need to create conditions for that. But this is obviously a war crime. This is obviously an act of genocide. And so they need to move slowly towards that. And it might take them 5 years in order to reach that goal.
Wow.
And so, can you talk a little bit about how this is going to play out and be spun to us as not really a war? These are just economic consequences of other more complicated things. You don't understand it, run along. But in the meantime, we will have shortages, food shortages and things like that.
Right. So what will happen is that this war will be drawn out, right? So the Americans will behave much more strategically, much more methodically.
At least the flock shall draw them out. Think about it. Being drawn out, being a forever war, a never-ending war. You're watching real time. The least the flock shall draw them out, meaning that they're in a forever war that'll never end, just keeps going on and on and on. Well, you saw that alone with just Afghanistan and Iraq. But Iran is not Iraq, you know. But that's what they plan to do, is just drag it out on and on and on, as he's already pointed out. And he's right about that. You see how the war just drags on, and eventually it turns into the Third World War, and then you got all these other things popping off over there. Then you got threats of Greenland being invaded, Cuba, Mexico, all these places, you know, against so-called, you know, drug cartels. But it's really just you know, the U.S. trying to gain ground because the hammer of the whole earth being broken down. You see how that plays out. They're being drawn out. You know, it just goes on and on forever.
That's what would make this war very popular at home, right? If troops started to come back in coffins. So only 13 troops are back so far, but if they can't reach 100, we can see massive protests against this war back at home. Okay, so that's the first step. Like to take a more slow, patient, strategic approach to this war. Second thing is to continue to distract American people with more conflicts, possibly with Canada's Mark Carney. It's possible Donald Trump will encourage separation of Alberta. It's possible that Trump and Carney will get into a swimming match at some point. Cuba is definitely on the menu, so Trump will want to take over Cuba at some point, so you're distracting the population. And the third piece, and this is the most important, is that as the economy suffers, and you point this out, but as the global economy suffers, as people are not able to book vacations to Europe anymore, as they're not able to buy whatever they want, people will slowly get bored of this war and focus more on domestic issues like the economy.
So there you have it, though. A forever war you can't get out of. You know? And that's just it. It eventually becomes a Third World War. Ship seizures by Iran don't breach truce. You know? So like everything else, though, Iran's seizure of 2 container ships in the Strait was not a ceasefire violation because they were not U.S. or Israeli owned. Video published on Wednesday shows IRGC personnel intercepting and boarding 2 MSC Mediterranean Shipping Company container ships. These seizures were reported on April 22nd, 23rd in the Strait as a critical maritime choke point for global trade. But, you know, they pretty much say, well, this is not ours, so it doesn't count. So, not violating anything. Futures fall as Iran talks remain in limbo, more ships intercepted. U.S. equity futures are lower but rapidly rising now at pre-market highs after a CCTV report that talks between Iran and U.S. and Pakistan may see a breakthrough tonight or tomorrow. Still optimistic. While the U.S. military intercepted 2 Iranian oil supertankers that tried to evade its blockade. Well, like everything else, you know, it's a fake ceasefire to begin with. It's not really a ceasefire, but it's a forever war. IRGC speedboats, UAVs, waiting for intruding U.S. vessels. You know, so they're waiting. They're waiting for them to try to break through. The IRGC Swarm Fleet and its fast boats in UUV is waiting from inside the sea caves of Iranian southern Faroe Island for intruding American warships to overwhelm their defenses and inflict severe consequences against the aggressors. He added that the Americans do not dare approach the strait as they witness what happened to their supposedly ultra-advanced destroyers, the USS Michael Murphy and the USS Frank Peterson. The Judiciary Chief emphasized that 3 intruding vessels in the strategic strait have been subjected to legal action. So, like everything else, though, you know, it just goes on and on, right? But you can never get out of it. It's a forever war. 2 Iranian women in ISIS detention are not in fact related to Qasem Soleimani documents. So, yeah. 2 Iranian women remain in ISIS detention, arrested earlier this month on accusations of being the niece and grandniece of Qasem Soleimani despite no connection to the late Iranian military commander. Drop site reviewed Iranian birth records, indicate identification papers, a family will, and other personal documents found no connection to whatsoever to him, but they used it as an excuse to detain, you know. So, like everything else, so, of course, you know, they've been demonized and demoralized, and these bastards try to make them eat pork, too, because I heard about that from the Press TV reporter that they had kidnapped, you know, during the Biden administration. They try to force them to eat pork, which is actually a standard that we set out, and they kept that standard. You know, that they don't eat pork either. It's not taught in Islam to eat pork. They don't eat pork either because they learned that from the Israelites when we were under captivity and even before when we were in rulership. It's a standard that they've kept. Iran has long history of defying bullies. Trump has reaped the whirlwind. So like everything else, though, this whirlwind is coming, better known as the Third World War. The people of our region do not yield to occupation or arrogance. Instead, we manifest our collective dignity. It's an immeasurable force. The modern history of West Asia can be read as a single enduring dialectic, humanitarian, and the revolutions of dignity it produces. Since the first waves of colonial intrusion, the region has been shaped by this pattern. Iran offers one of its most condensed expressions, though it is not the only one. Yeah. In 1892, a single ruling issued from Najaf brought a country to halt across Iran. People stopped smoking overnight in bazaars, homes, and even in royal court. It was not about tobacco, it was about humiliation. A nation had been handed over to foreign control, and for the first time it refused. This is a simple rule in politics that empires repeatedly fail to understand. The humiliation does not produce submission, it produces resistance. So, yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, they're not going to capitulate, but like everything else, though, you know, it's a forever war, and they're just going to drag it out, because that's what it said, draw them out, drag it out. Lisa Flock shall drag it out, shall make their habitations desolate because of them, you know, because they can't get out, you know. They're forever bound in that war. Just like Iraq went on for years, and so did the others, even though Saddam Hussein was removed from power, right? It was about getting rid of Saddam Hussein, but yet they still remained in Iraq because of the fact that it wasn't even about Saddam Hussein. It was just about Israeli control, you know, the Greater Israel Project. So everything is just dragged out, it's drawn out. 3 children among fatalities in the fresh Israeli strike against northern Gaza. Yeah, since this is drawn out, they can do whatever the fuck they want to. Gaza's Civilian Defense Industry Agency announced in a statement on Wednesday that the Israeli attack targeted several individuals near Al-Qassam Mosque in the city of Beit Lahia. It added that their bodies were taken to Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. The agency, however, did not provide any information on how old the children were. Gaza Health Ministry has announced the death toll in Gaza Strip has reached 75,562 people amid the ongoing Israeli terror attacks since October 7. So here's some footage there. So these are martyrs. Yeah, because of the Israelis. And they're doing the same in Lebanon. as well as Syria. They don't keep it home. And neither does the U.S., which you could call it the Israeli states of America, because they're the ones that are drawing this out. Because everybody's bought and paid for by the Israeli state, by these gutter rats, these Amalekites. Kill the idea of a Palestinian state. Israeli state quietly presses ahead with another illegal West Bank settlement. Well, nobody's holding them to an illegal action, are they? Israeli state set to reopen dismantled gun settlement as it quietly accelerates illegal expansion across the occupied West Bank. Why? Because that's being, faded out because of all the other stuff going on. After re-establishing settlements of Hamas and Sanaa, which were removed under Israeli state's 2005 unilateral disengagement plan, so they never even honored that. They just continue to take territory while no one else is paying attention. But like everything else, Apostle Tahar has a video here on what is the GMS, takedown of Babylon, right? America, Babylon the Great, Well, a forever war that has no exit strategy, right? That's just the beginning of everything. They're forever in this war. Therefore, in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20, amp, therefore, hear the plan of the Most High Yahweh, that he has devised against Edom, and hear what he has purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely they will be dragged away, even the lace of flock. Surely he shall make their dwelling place desolate because of them. So they are just totally drawn out into a war that never ends. You just can't get out of it, It just goes on and on forever, and then they have a plan to put a microchip in everybody. Hey, Aaron Russo had already revealed all this to Alex Jones years ago. The famous interview. They want everybody to be chipped ultimately at the end of the day. They have all the money in the world and all the power, and the war would just go on forever and ever. In other words, being drawn out into this war forever, and it never ends. They'd be looking for a guy in a cave, but they could never find him. That's talking about the so-called War of Terror. The false flag event that started that. Well, he predicted all those things. Well, he didn't predict them. He was told by Rockefeller himself, because he met Nick Rockefeller. Very famous interview. But ultimately their goal is to have everyone chipped, and they would control absolutely everything. Having control over everything, and that's what this is really all about. And the straight closure and all those things is all about, pretty much causing. And we're seeing it in real time. This is the plan of the Most High. But Esau thinks that he's schemed the plan. Well, that's because the Most High allowed Esau to think that. There's nothing that goes on that the Most High isn't in control of. So hopefully this has been edifying for them to say, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Brakatam Jehovah elect. And you can catch the whole video on this channel, but I'm going to play some of this. Shalom.
Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh, Hashem, 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 Rakakadash, Shalom, 344,000 in West Elect, okay, Shalom to you all. Anyway, I'm going to entitle this video, this is a question I posed to Google. Anyway, it's here's the title. What is the GMS Israelites' take on the downfall of America? Give me scriptures. So I briefly reviewed the whole page, and it gave me some good feedback. Anyway, I was kind of inspired. I didn't even watch this video. I just caught the title, GMS Inquirer early too. The season finally of America. Hashtag get, hashtag ready. And this is this masculine chick. You never deal with a chick like this. She's a cute woman, but she's definitely not dating material. She's too goddamn masculine, too straightforward. She sounds like she got a bit of education. She, only deal with women, feminine women. And when I say feminine, super feminine, women that are feminine. You know the difference of a woman that's feminine. Clarissa Sales is masculine. You don't deal with a woman like that. What's her name? Alicia Baumgartner. She's too masculine. And these are sisters, Most sisters are masculine. You don't want to deal with no masculine. You don't want no masculine. The only masculine energies that to be in the room is you. So she's talking about the downfall of America, but she's coming with a masculine. And may your first child be a masculine child. Inside joke. I'm not going to play it because there's music in the background, but I'm going to start it right from here, where the elder goes in,
And then I'm going to make it easy on myself. I'm going to go to this subject. What is the GMS Israelite take on the downfall of America? Give me scriptures. Showing you that the Google and the chat, they know us. Because if I put GMS Israelite, and the more you do that, when you go to Google or you go to the chat, or whatever site, wherever you go to get answers, the Google and the chat, they have abundant amount of information on the Israelites. You know, the One Westers, the IUICs, and the ISUPKs and the GMSs. And by the way, they always, when we, a lot of times when I used to, talk about months back, go to the chat, and I'll put in GMS Israelites, blah, 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 and give me a lot of information. Then they said, do you want to compare GMS to IUIC or ISUPK? Showing you what? That those are major camps. That, you know, the whole Israelite thing, if somebody starts watching the videos on Hebrew Israelism, as Vocab put it, they're going to run into IUIC videos, ICPK videos, Sakari videos, break off from Sakari videos, GMS videos, GOCC videos, and so forth, HODC. But the major camps are always like the three, ISUPKs, the IUICs, and the GMSs. So anyway, let me just go ahead and play. You can come back and listen to her and her masculine rant, completely masculine. I mean, you know, you can look at the still and see that she's got masculine energy. You know, there's a woman that has that face, plain face, what do you call it, shame face, I meant to say. That's in the scriptures as well. You know, woman, she's the type of woman that won't look down. She'll look you eye to eye. You know? So anyway, let's go ahead and play what the elder is going to say. This is 30 minutes long. We're going to stop and go. Let's see where the Spirit takes us. And the best subject to speak on is what? The season final of the season final of America. Like you got the finals, you got the Eastern Conference for the ones of you that keep up with the NBA, the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference, which are finals for the championship series. Which I get into that. I'm not a big NBA fan, but I'll get into it at the end of the season. I got into it a lot when Jordan was playing, and forget it, my older brother, he's a basketball demon, and I'm surprised he never played pro ball. Anyway, let's go.
That are laboring to push true wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, continue within the apostle doctrine. Shalom, peace, love to all of the rest of the hopeful elect, that are just believers that are listening to learning. I'm just running some errands this morning before camp. I'm thinking, what can I do a lesson on? I wanted to do a lesson on a video concerning, these careless women, and she let us that live in pleasures there while she's living, because I came across a video of a woman, or how not a woman, but how women go through the procedures, of putting fat, from dead bodies, into their mash.
You can see how she's
that way. In order to make it,
you can see how this chick is moving her head, the way she's looking, the eyes straight up to totally masculine. Even though she puts earrings on, she probably puts a foundation on, she had her hair back. She is cute, but she might have a sister that's a twin, might be totally different. And the look will be totally different just because of the aura that you, but her aura is totally stay away from masculine women.
Mash, look fat, look round, you're walking around with a dead person's fat inside of your butt, so no wonder, why it stinks and gives off that wretched smell. So I'm like, man, you know what? I don't fucking do a video on the woman, So I'm scrolling, and then
we were getting on the woman yesterday at the camp about douching. The JR Wisdom did a video. If y'all don't watch him, you should watch him. Matter of fact, there the nigga going now. Stop playing with me. JR Wisdom, the video he did yesterday about what was it? The woman that smelled down there, and he said because their pH balance is off. Y'all don't know about the sciences, man. We had pretty much a damn hospital visit. At the close of the camp, we had a hospital visit. I was checking a bunch of brothers' blood pressure, and how they gonna get that monitor, Because I almost died fucking yesterday in the afternoon. I almost fucking dropped dead, and I realized I was panicking. My body was shaking. I was all, what the fuck is going on? And I said, no, you got to be cool. You got to think. You can't fold under pressure. So I came to the realization that was a electrolyte deficiency. Through me drinking, I get these blue bottles of water, these Saratogas, and I don't even realize I drink maybe 2 of them, just sitting here doing videos, and not getting any electrolytes in me. So I hooked up some electrolytes. I was shaking too. Hooked it up, drank it. Still felt fucked up. Took some organic cinnamon. Cases of diabetes, my sugar going up, which I don't have diabetes, as I know. Maybe I'm pre-diabetic, I don't know. But then what else did I take? I took a piece of chocolate. What else? I took cinnamon. Oh, cayenne pepper, which I took it in the pill form. I should have broke the pills and took it in the this powder. I got the cayenne pepper tincture. I could have took a shot of that too. It went right into my system. I could have put it under my tongue. There was a lot of things I could have did, which I was doing. And then eventually I started, my blood pressure was never high. It was crazy high. It was fucking like 200 on the top number and over 100 on the bottom number. Now, I'm checking these brothers at the camp. There's I did maybe 7 of them, maybe 8. They did blood pressure. They were, I believe one was all right too, but they were mostly high. I said, man, your shit is too high. Your shit is way too high. There was one brother, I'm not gonna mention his name, but his was crazy high. I said, man, it's a miracle that you still living. And we had talked on the side, and I was the first thing I asked him about is his diet. And his diet gave it away. I said, yep, that's the diet. You got this, that's parasites. Yeah, I got a taste for carbs. I said, that's not you getting that taste. It's the parasites that's connected. You have what's called the gut-brain connection, I believe you call it. You can look it up. Look these terms up. The blood, the actual word, the phrase, I believe, is the gut-brain connection. Your gut talks to your brain because it wants certain things. If you have parasites in you, your brain will also. Who said this? One of the men in the camp said, "Oh, I got a sweet tooth." And then I said, "Yeah," because I said it's not you that got the sweet tooth. It's the parasites in your ass. And if you blink, if anybody out there in my hearing listening to me, if you blink your eyes, guess what? You got parasites. Everybody go in the mirror and see if they blink. You blink, everybody. In other words, everybody got some amount of parasites in them. So you have to do these cleanses. I'm gonna get back into the main subject. That's just the science part of the class. We teach sciences. Jake, as a whole, you line up Jake. You get a bunch of Jake. Get 1 million Jakes. You test them. Guaranteed, the majority of them is gonna be either pre-diabetic or diabetic, high blood pressure, which is hypertension, which are related. Usually if you got diabetic, you got high blood pressure. Your diet is horrendous. That's why in the hood, you know what Jake eats in the hood by going in the hood. Go to the hood, go to any hood in America, and go where the restaurants are, the supermarket is. And that's what they eating, because guess what? Them restaurants wouldn't be there if Jake wasn't eating it, man. Them Chinese restaurants on every corner, they're there because Jake mainly, give me all that, give me China. My girl used to say, she used to call her Chinese chick, and she said, China. No, Chinese. What she say? China. Give me this and that and the third. Like they'll order this horrendous shit. Man. Give me a break. I'm still on this subject. Like we used to go to this fish spot, right? Mexicans, they were running it, and Jake in the hood. It wasn't too far from Mount Vernon, which was in the Bronx. With Dyer Lab. We don't go there no more. Deep fried fish. And Jake would come in there. Ghetto ass Jake would come in. Hood Jake would come in there. The woman. They would get fried. They didn't have enough for fish. They get fries, and they'll take every condiment and put it on the fries. They'll take tartar sauce, put it on the fries. A heap of them out. Ketchup, put it on the fries. Salt and pepper, they put it on the fries. Hot sauce, they put on the fries. So I see this one chick doing that. I said, this bitch she probably dead now. I said, that shit is horrendous with this bitch. They make it crispy too. Make them fries crispy too. Anyway, y'all got to get hey, the scripture says in 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, speaks about him that destroyeth the temple. The Most High will destroy you the temple. Not so many words. Well, Jake's destroying the temple. And it always goes to that. I always ask you, what do you eat? What do you eat? A lot of time they hesitate. The brother told me when he said he got he got a taste. I said, do you eat pizza? He said, you got to taste the pizza. Yeah. I pulled him to the side. I said, okay. I said, you got to cut that shit all together. I said, that's them parasites, man. But and I told them, brothers, I said a good start is to go on videos on YouTube or either Google or whatever, and put in healthy diet. Put in keto diet, because I mostly eat. I'm not on a keto diet. I'm not on a keto diet, but if you were a keto person, you came to my house, you said, well, you're on a keto diet, because most of the foods that I eat is keto. When you have the Passover, guess what? That's a keto diet right there, because no leaven. Take out the leaven, take out the carbs. So last week, 2 weeks ago, for a whole week, whole 7-day period, you kept a keto diet. Then you have the Mediterranean diet, which are all. Then you have Sardinian. The healthiest people on the earth that live the longest, that live beyond 100 on the average, people of the Mediterranean, which doesn't include one actual place. You know, like Greek food and Mediterranean food, that whole region right there. Middle Eastern food is good. Middle Eastern food is good. It's all cooked. The women, they get up in the morning and they'll cook all day until the evening or lunch or whatever, lunchtime. They'll cook all. Everything is non-processed. Everything is from scratch, and everything's healthy. So you got Okinawa. They live to be on average over 100. Meet people in the Mediterranean that keep that diet. They live beyond 100. Sardinia, which is island south of the boot of Italy, they live to be over 100. There's another one. There's a couple of them. They eat really good. And we eat garbage. All you brothers eat garbage, man. That's why you got problems. And you got to exercise too. You know, me and myself, I'm always exercising. I got another membership in the gym. I got a gym in my crib. I got weights and stuff in my crib that I use. But I go to the gym to hit the bag. I'm hitting the road. The last time I hit the road, I did 3 miles, and I started doing 2.5 miles with weighted vest. I got 2 weighted vests. One, the newest one, Pascal Bar, that got me, which has 10 pounds on it. The other vest, the first vest I had for years, that's 20 pounds. So I'll hit the bag with it. I'll walk with it. So we're you know, if you look at my old videos from, you know, the early 2010s, whatever, 2013s, whatever, I was big. I was fucking big. I was 200 plus pounds. Right now I'm about anywhere between 165 and 170, which is my high school weight. How many of y'all can say you're at your high school weight? And when I was in high school, I was a jock. Okay? Anyway, let me go ahead and let this play. Forgive me, y'all.
I remember, you know, a video that I downloaded yesterday that I came across, and this woman, you know, she's giving a message, and her message is on point. You know, and she's speaking about how we're in the final moments of America.
Her delivery is not on point. Too fucking masculine. If I talk, first of all, I wouldn't talk to a woman like this. I can pick up that whole masculine vibe.
You know, in the world of scene.
And as pretty as she is, she looks ugly when she comes with that masculine shit. You know, if I was to deal with her, I would tell her, I said, I'm going to have to change you. You're going to have to be more, she'll get offended. You know, I told her, I said, you got to have to be more feminine, man. You're going to have to carry yourself more feminine. And I will accept nothing less. I want a feminine woman. I want a feminine woman.
Is the mystery Babylon that the Bible speaks of. America is that Babylon.
And guess what? It ain't a mystery no more. Because Edomites, who did the video a couple of days ago, and I kind of lamb back off of it, that you had Edomites, clips of Edomites on TikTok saying America's Babylon. They're starting to see it. The Bible Belt Edomites, these patriotic Edomites, these what do you call it? Prepper Edomites. Them Edomites down south that really go to born againers. They know that the mark of the beast is a chip. See, they know more than Nate and Johanna know.
It's not the Roman Catholic Church, it's not Italy. America is that great city that reigns over the rest of the world. And it had its moments of greatness. But however, that time has come to an end. It's a pretty, closing.
Yep, its time has come to an end. You can catch the rest of the video on his channel. Shalom.